everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi. Today we're going to take a look at the Dior Velvet Quint, the Rosa Mutabilis, or Mutabilis, close enough. It is one of the new 5 velvet quints that have been released by Dior. I'm doing a video on each new quint and comparing it to the last 2+ years of Dior quints that have been released. And like I said, today we're going to focus on the Rosa. So if you're interested in seeing that, just stay tuned. Hey everybody. So again, another Dior video today. I know there's a lot of Dior. I'm trying to intersperse them so that they're not, hitting my channel all at once, because I think you can get Diored out. But I do think that, these velvets are unique enough to have a dedicated video and to use that as an opportunity to show you the other Dior quints that might be in the same color family. As I've said in other videos, and if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I have been purchasing the Dior quints that have come out since my channel started back in March of 2020. I've purchased every single Dior quint. So I have all of the quints that have been released in the last 2 years. And so I can say pretty securely that, if it doesn't exist in my collection, then it wasn't released in the last 2+ years. There actually is a new quint that was just released, I believe, overseas. I think it's an Asia exclusive, which I don't know if I'll be able to order or not. So that might be one that is missing from my collection. But all the others that have been released over the last 2 years, I have. So looking at these new velvet quints, I decided I'd do a dedicated video to each one, and show all of the other Dior quints that I think are in the same color story. I've done the blue velvet. I've done the nude dentelle. I don't know if they're actually up yet, but I've done the videos. And this is the Rosa Mutabilis. Now, in swatching all of the quints that I bought over the last 2 years, there's 40+ of them, I did not find another quint with the same color story. Even the same undertones, frankly. There are quints, many of them, that are what you would say purple or purple leaning, but there were none that had this rose, and I'm using rose in the definition of like a soft pink with a little bit of like dustiness to it, like a dusty rose. It didn't exist in any of their other quints. The only other pink quint is Pink Coral. And when you look at it next to this Rosa Mutabilis, you'll realize they aren't similar. So I would say that this rose quint is quite unique based on the other Dior quints that have come out over the last 2 years. I don't think it's necessarily a unique color story though. I think it actually has a lot of similarities to the Divine Rose collections that Pat McGrath has done. So if you've liked those, I think you'll really like this one. I think there's some color similarity to some of the quote nude quints in Dior that have come out that are a little cooler leaning, but it's still like, really honestly, when I swatched them, I was like, not really. So I think this one is very unique. It reminds me, in the description of it, in the same way the blue velvet is really not like any of the other Dior quints that have come out before. The blue velvet is a unique color story, at least for the quints that have come out from Dior in the last 2 years. There have been color stories from Dior that have resembled blue velvet, and I'm sure Rosa Mutabilis, that came out in the history of Dior. I mean, Dior's been doing makeup for quite some time. I'm just comparing it to the last 2.5 years since they changed over the formula. So there's probably a color story, a quint that's out there from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, who knows? But in the last 2 years, this one doesn't really resemble any other. So I'm going to swatch it for you, and I'll show it to you next to Pink Coral so you can see what I'm talking about. That is Rosa Mutabilis. And this is the shade that really I find the most unique. It's a very much of a dusty rose, and I didn't really find it in any of the other Dior quints. Again, though, it does look like many of the shades that Pat McGrath did for Divine Rose. But it's a very dusty rose. It's got like a coolness, a grayness almost to it that's really appealing. This red that's in here also seems to exist in the red tartan, which is one of the new velvets. It's very, very similar to that shade. So I think it's interesting if you take that out, how light and cool this quint is. And then when you put it in, you can see how that deepens up the entire look. I am not a huge fan of red on my eyes, so I'm not going to use as much of that shade as I'm going to use some of the others. I'm going to show you the pink Corole next to it. But if you are somebody who likes red and you like that color story, you'll be happy to know that it's in there. When I do the video for red tartan, which should be coming up relatively soon, you'll see that that red is obviously in the red tartan, and that there's a bunch of Dior quints that have that red in them. Also, I pull out the Chanel red quads that were done last year because Chanel went through a period where they had quite a bit of red in their eyeshadows. Their creative director has changed, and so that is not the case anymore, but there are a couple of Chanel quads that I wanted to mention. Okay, so that's pink Corole, and I think you can see how drastically different it is than the Rosa. It's really, in my opinion, more purple than it is pink, but it is the pinkest of the purple quints in Dior. This is very much a lavender, and this is very much a plum. These are the shades, though, these pinks, that do make it, you know, a pink quint. And in fact, if you like pink, pink Corole is the only Dior quint that's truly pink. If, however, you like more of a rose, what I'm defining rose as is to be more a softer, dustier, cooler kind of leaning, almost peachy, I think you're going to really like this new Rosa. This pink Corole, I didn't really like it at first because they're really not my shades, but I will admit that when I use it, I kind of leave this one out. I focus on these three shades and a little bit of this very light pink, and then I really like it because it leans more purple. Okay, so let's dig into the Rosa. And I'm gonna start it with, you know, a soft look, a soft pink look, more of the rose, and we'll add the red on in the end so that you can see what it can do if you leave the red out or if you add the red in. So let's start with this shade in the middle and kind of using that as a little bit of a transition. It is basically the color of my skin tone. It's gonna blend in pretty seamlessly, and you'll see that pretty quickly. It's basically my skin tone, which is kind of interesting, but it sets up a nice base. If you are a similar skin tone to me, that shade you could use, which is what I'm using, almost like an eyeshadow base. You know, it's canceling out any veins or blueness or pinkness in my skin because, you know, you have veins in your eyes, or at least I do, that show through. Or, of course, you can use an eyeshadow base, which will, you know, achieve the same thing. I generally don't use eyeshadow bases. I do have some. It's that the reason I don't do it is that I want you to see how it looks on my skin tone without an eyeshadow base. If I want, quote, a true nature of the color, I will use a base to sort of cancel out anything on my eyelids. But for the most part, my eyelids aren't too pink or too yellow or too blue. So I think I tend to get a relatively true color. But yes, my skin tone is cooler leaning, and shades do go cooler on me. So they might look a little bit warmer on you. So again, I'm just using that middle shade, using it all over the eye and into the transition just to kind of give it like a base. It's a very, very light peachy pink kind of shade. It's just really light. It's a really light pink. I like my skin. It's very pretty though, and I think if you're looking for a very light peach shade, that's a really nice shade. But on me and with my skin tone, it doesn't really look like much when you first put it on. All right, then we're gonna take this peachier shade, not the dusty rose shade, but the peachier shade down here, and go into the crease with it. The Velvet formula is the same in all of the Velvet quints that I've used. I haven't noticed any difference amongst them. They are all very easy to use, very blendable. You know, they wear well on the eye. They're comfortable. I haven't had any problems with them irritating my eyes. They don't settle into lines. They're very soft. They still have the pine oil and the aloe in them, so they're comfortable to wear. And I can't say that I see any issues with the formula, the way they blend, the way they look. So I think it is a matter of which color story you like. The color story that I think is probably the most unique for Dior is probably the Blue Velvet, because if you saw that video, it's a very sophisticated blue. It's this very gray, dusty blue with lavender and periwinkle. It's very pretty. And Dior just doesn't have anything else like that in the collection. And, you know, I've looked through my collection. I'm not sure I really have anything like that from any other brands either. I have elements of those colors in different palettes, but not all together. So I think it is unique. I then would say this one, the Rosa, because there really isn't anything quite with these shades. I'm going to go into the Dusty Rose in the Dior collection that I have. And the reason I'd say that is because the pinks in here, as I showed you in the swatches, they're very subtle. They're very pretty, light, elegant pinks. They're not by any means a bright pink or a purple pink or a magenta pink. They are very subdued, elegant pink. They're not really my favorite shade for my coloring. I think they would look better with somebody with different coloring, but I do think they are very pretty, and I do think that they are unique, rosy, dusty shades that don't really exist outside of this palette. So I'm just going back into that dusty pink a little bit more and just putting it on the eye. I've left the inner corner pretty bare, but everything else is covered. All right, so now we're going to take the lightest pink, which is this one here. It's very light pink. And again, I said I'm not going to use the red until really the end, because I want to show you what this can look like without the red. Because once you put the red on, it can overtake this look, depending on, you know, how you use it. And maybe you want that. Maybe you're buying it for that reason. Like I said, I'm just not a huge a fan of red on my face. I have nothing wrong with the shade. Red is a beautiful shade, but I don't really wear a lot of red makeup. I also don't wear a lot of red clothing. Not because I don't like the shade, it just tends to clash with my hair. So that's the Rosa without the red. Okay, I'm gonna blend it just a little bit on the eye here. Okay, so blend it out a little bit more. Now I'm gonna take the red shade and I'm gonna show you what the red does to the look. And again, I've already got the lighter shades down, so the red is not gonna be as deep because, you know, you've got lighter shades underneath it. But I would tell you that this red is actually pretty straightforward red. So if you're not a fan of red, you're going to want to be careful with this one. You're going to want to be careful with this one because it is a true red, and it's, like I said, it can be overpowering for the look if you're not careful with it. Now, if you're looking to have a red look, then, you know, it won't be intimidating for you. But if you don't like red a lot on your eye, you're gonna be like, oh, well, you know, that's not really the look I'm going for. So I would say use it sparingly unless you want it to look red, because the red is a very pigmented red. It's I think a true, it's about as neutral red as you can get. Like it's cool leaning, yes, but it's not an orange red. It's not a warm red. I would say it's more towards a blue red than anything else, but it's pretty neutral. Now you can see how quickly that amped up the look, and it made it much more red leaning than the pink that was underneath it. So I definitely think you get like a rose look. Depends on how you define the color rose, right? Because in my mind, when I think of rose, I think of this dusty rose shade, this very like dusty pink that I showed you. That's what I think of. But you could think of rose as like a red rose, which is more this shade. You know, there's lavender roses, you know, so it depends on what you like and what you think of when you think of the word rose. But I do think the red kind of overpowers the look a little bit. And so you want to be careful with the red unless you're going for a red look. I'm going to use a black liner because I feel like that's the best complement to this. I'm not going to use a lot. I'm just going to use a little bit. But I think for a look like this, black is a good choice because, like I said, the red can be like a little much. For me, I think one of the reasons I don't like red on my eyes is my eyes go red, like my lids go red when I have allergies. So like that's what it reminds me of. So I think that's why I don't like it. I think it's just a preference thing. Okay, so got a little bit of black liner on. I'm going to curl my lashes, put on mascara, and then we will talk final thoughts. Okay, we're back with mascara on, and I will say that I like the look more with the mascara, and liner. But this is probably my least favorite of the quints. I have actually tried them all. I haven't filmed them all yet when this goes up. When this goes up, I probably will have filmed them all. But I have to say, the rose color story just isn't really me. The pink that underlies it before you put the red on is beautiful, and the dusty rose especially I do like. But the other shades, I'm just not like a pink eye look person. So it's just not my favorite. And then when you add the red to it, for me, it just looks too reddish pink. And I personally, with my skin tone and my hair and that type of thing, it's just not my favorite look. The formula, perfect, blends beautifully. It's gonna look great. If this is your color story and this is what you love, the Rosa is the way to go. And like I said, I really don't think there's another quint in the last 2.5 years of Dior that is the same. I think it's definitely different. So again, if you like these types of shades and you're looking for something that has more of the rosy tones, the peaches and the pink, dusty rose, and then this red, I think you'll be very happy with it. If you're looking for something more truly pink, like a bright pink or a magenta pink or something, this wouldn't be for you. I'd suggest the pink curl if you can get your hands on it, if you're looking at Dior. But I do think this has some similarities to the Pat McGrath Divine Rose series. I think there's definitely similarities there. But the formula on this is beautiful, and the matte finish I think looks really, really nice on the eye. So thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you in another video really soon. Bye.